So my name is Rohan. I lead the digital marketing commerce function at Intel APAC and Japan. Primarily, I look at media buying and planning, working with partners like retail and e-commerce. And all this obviously requires fair bit of engagement with the tech teams. So I also look at the market stack that's involved in these kind of decision making and executions. I've been in Intel almost 10 years now, and prior to Intel, I worked with media and creative agencies back in India. What I personally think, Brave's gonna be doing way more with way less in 2023. The macro headwinds with economy, etc., are not that great, globally speaking. So I think in next year onwards, marketeers will be stretched in trying to prove more ROI with potentially less investments. So the brave would be to take the off-beaten path, which marketers don't want to do, is that, doing something perhaps with no budgets, trying things which don't cost too much money. There's going to be a huge focus on newer things, frugal thinking, frugal marketing that really drives value without really costing the corporation too much. I think it's a mix at an overall level. So tasks which, so obviously we've tried to automate a big portion of it, but it's never that easy. So now, for example, in our case, a lot of market sensing across social media, digital search is something which is automated. So we look at them on a regular basis. Similarly for media, especially programmatic media and social media, we have automated elements of it, which are, you basically set up a certain campaign and then you let it run for a certain period of time. But all this requires human oversight. So, in the larger context, if everything can be automated, I think that's unlikely. There's no fire and forget kind of a philosophy here. You need to keep a track of it. But yes, a lot of manual stuff like reporting, collation of information, and then visualization, yes, that can be automated in real time. And I think that's a lot of value that people like me and my stakeholders drive value out of. But I would say it is an ideal mix of about 50-50, 50% automation, 50% human oversight to drive real inferences and analysis. I heard a comment in one of the panels some time back, you need to have common sense marketing. I mean, marketing is not a hard skill, as I always say. You can learn it. The most important attribute for any marketeer is to have an open mind and have a lot of common sense. And then that applies to knowing your audiences, what they are doing, what they're consuming, and hence, obviously build your plan according to it. Simple answer, be open-minded, ready to try things, ready to fail, but don't give up. Do it again, because that's the only way that you can try, do something and derive some value out of it. First-party data is the bedrock of any sort of marketing, especially if you're buying media. Now, it's easier said than done. The way we look at first-party data is to have a closer contact with our own customer. Now, the way we collect and collate it is through the website, through lead gen, through events wherein we are collecting this data on a regular basis. What we do after is to clean up the data, make it usable, as we like to call it, and then wherever there's an execution, we are trying to reach out to an audience or you're trying to run a campaign, we try that our own data, whatever it is, gets ingested into a particular activity. Now, this could be a programmatic buying, it could be social. Our first port of call is to try and see if we can ingest our own data and we build over that. As an example, what we typically do is that if you're running a media campaign, if we come to media, and let's say we're trying to reach an audience who's of a particular audience segment, we'll try and put that into a third-party platform and find more people like that. As I said, we don't sit a lot of data ourselves, but what we do is we start with our own and then try and enrich it. And by enriching, we try to reach a space where we have a lot of it, and we can, a lot of it here means scale, that it makes reaching these audiences effective and efficient using media. Biggest pitfalls of data, especially first-party data, is that if you don't have enough of it, if you don't have the scale for it, it might not really work out. So whatever you're trying to do will not really be effective. I think whenever we use first-party data, we see better results. And then the reason is simple. This data is the freshest that we know. It's validated. It's cleaned up. So for example, we run certain campaigns in the last few quarters wherein we used a segment data. Now, for a company like ours, gaming is a very important segment. So we had some data of gamers. We look at specific gamers. So again, gaming can be of different types. So without going into too much details, when we ingested this first-party data of gamers into targeting more people like them or getting more gamers into the mix, that worked way better when we had our own data to begin with, rather than when we were actually using somebody else's data. Just third-party buying of the market, etc., etc. Classic case example, and this has been seen across different categories. I gave an example of gamers. It's again for our enterprise audiences, which is even more relevant there because that kind of data is not easily available in the market. The other challenge that you have in APAC especially is that you don't have enough data available for audiences. It's very different versus the US or the UK market, which are the more, I would say, evolved with data providers. In APAC, getting the right quality data regularly is not easy. It could be old, it would not be updated, which means as a media buyer, when you're investing in it, you're not getting a good result, and for obvious reasons, because it's old, not unupdated, and not even clean. So again, if you have your own data and you try it, we've seen always a better performance. To quantify it, yeah, I would say anything between 15-20% better at a base level. So there are a couple of things happening in this space which are interesting, and some of them are evolving. So they're not, they've been happening for a few years, but I think now in the next year, they'll finally take shape. Very technical ones are the SPO, which is supply path optimization, and demand path optimization. I think those are key two trends because as advertisers as well as publishers, whose inventory we advertisers buy, we all want it to be a clean system. We want less number of middlemen or women to that matter. This trend, which is again not new or radical, will take more concrete shape in the coming year, wherein you'll see more and more advertisers going towards it and asking for it. And whichever technology platforms that can provide them will definitely gain over the ones which don't. So that's one. The other, I think I said on the stage as well, is 5G. As 5G becomes more prevalent, becomes more cost effective for users to use, people like you and me, you'll see that with better speeds, you'll have more immersive ad units being rolled out. The lag times, the load time will reduce dramatically, which means the experience of an ad will improve. And that could lead people to actually stop using ad blockers because they will no longer interfere with your page experience. It will not completely take it away, but overall experience and what you can do with ad formats could dramatically increase, and that could definitely benefit all media, especially programmatic, because programmatic is more open to more immersive ad formats. And the third one, I would say, beyond these two, is just audio and things like digital out of home and connected TV. Again, these have been there for a few years, but I think they're becoming more pervasive. You'll see them more and more as inventory increases, and the fact that they're starting to get connected into the larger digital ecosystems, which means small screen. You'll see more value coming out of it, and then the real omni-channel experience, will increase, I would say, dramatically with all this coming together. I'll add a fourth one is retail media. That's one of my current roles I focus on. So big retail platforms, I'm talking about people like Amazon's, for example, they are becoming their own media platforms. You can buy media on them and you can essentially go all full funnel. So that will, and already Amazon's has disrupted a lot of this market. This will grow further, and other players which may not be traditional e-commerce will jump into them. We already heard about Uber, Marriott. So anybody who's got high quality data, updated data, is potentially a media platform tomorrow. So that will become more pervasive, and you'll see more non-traditional companies coming into the media fray, and that will be interesting for marketeers to see how do you latch onto them and leverage them. For me, the biggest advantage, or what I look forward to, I should say, is meeting like-minded people, learning from people who are actually practicing it. So it's very less theory here, it's more practical information. So for me, that is also my biggest takeaways in a conference like this. I've been associated with programmatic pioneers for a few years now. So each time you come, you come with certain notions about what you're getting into, and a lot of times some of those notions are normally broken. and you come back with something, you take back something else. I think for me that's the biggest benefit of programmatic pioneers and a conference like this, is that you learn new, you learn from people who are actually doing it, and then you go back with something more than what you came with.